Chilly here with Sirius, Dallas, Moon, Jupiter, our Sol day. Sun, 3 degrees Gemini. Moon, 14 degrees Virgo. And we have Mars, 4 degrees Taurus, with Venus separating from the sextile 6 degrees Cancer. Mars is a degree away from squaring Pluto. And Mars is moving a bit slowly in Taurus, so it's going to take us all the way to May 26th. A little bit about what's coming up. They said there's going to be advancement with Hormuz or the Star of Hormuz. That's good news. I do, however, predict that to actually evade the square between Mars and Pluto, the economy needs to be. And here's the thing with Pluto: Pluto can be nuclear energy. It can also be transforming the structure, particularly in Aquarius, into structure that's compatible for orgasmic birthing. Now, why do I hone in on that subject so much? Because in the agendas of doubling the population, in the times that are preparing for the times of the Inquisition, the only thing that negates inquisitions, because it was multiple, is honoring the feminine. And per individual, as long as Saturn is in Aries, every single individual need to have the conditions, internal and external, for orgasmic birthing. This is why the Mars square Pluto, for example, if I think about people born into not lifeless structures, but structures that are not so supportive of life. They're more susceptible to mind control, they're more susceptible to depression, post-trauma, and so on. And they're too exhausted to fight, but they become sick. And then the system needs to support them, and then they say, okay, why don't you go to work? Because they work in alleviating corruption. And they are entitled to dividends. The Peter ring dropped because Googleplex people connected with their embodied sense of self, sensuality. And so what were the challenges? Where was it coming from? What was it targeting? And then we come to the fact that orgasmic birthing is the antidote to breeding farms. And it's the antidote to all the ailments and traumas of both the elite and the common people. Doesn't work, and the scriptures, the story of the scriptures are changing, but the scriptures should be changing. Okay, the Huguenots and the Calvinists did not alter the Bible, and thus the Catholics could litigate them for not being adhering to the Bible, because the Bible is a basis for jurisdiction. If we don't change that basis, it means that we don't change jurisdiction. Now, that trajectory, as I spoke about yesterday, is accumulating to more exposure of extortion cult, which is playing to the logic of extortion cult. What is actually a point of interference? Changing the internal structure and external structure, whether it's the fascia, whether it is the bone structure, through aligning, let's say, the toes. And no, it's not. It's honoring yin is also the understanding that the economic infrastructure needs to support life. If it doesn't, it has no reason for existence, and then economies fall. After Vogue, because Vogue was not going that mile, women were in better position, they had life insurances and so on, but it was not going that mile. Netherlands fell, the Kingdom of Orange fell after Vogue. Now, is it because they looted the silver? No. Is it because they took gold and brought silver? No. because every system, and I saw it also when running a business, our own bodies will begin to test the environment to see, does the environment actually honor me when I'm not able to work? If not, why should I be providing value for this environment? I also don't want to be looting that environment, because that is where I become a part of the environment, unless it's like looting the silver so that the people can buy food. Orgasmic birthing feeding structure is not compatible with overworking, is not compatible with relations that are not sovereign and joyous and respectful and honoring. Every woman, for example, every woman, there would be a phase in that woman that you would test the man to see, would he see a woman as a whore if so and so and so and so and so. Not because of shame, but because a man that would be not be able to see the woman in a woman is not a fit father. Like I said, the woman that will not, she may have a sudden affair, but she would have an introspection into why that happened, what were the needs that were met, um, and the more she, and then she will also have the space to know herself so that she can pick compatible partners. Doesn't work with trying to control population and ban cheating at the same time. Okay, I talked about the case where if I was working on internal things and another person was working on, let's see that this man is good enough a father that they can assist with launching a project and keeping it secret when it's secret and so on and so forth. And then it was like, okay, let's see that somebody does not, or looking into myself and then connecting with myself, receptive in myself, then boom, sudden energy flow, and it's kind of like, okay, I'm not here for love bombing. I've given up relationships because I tended to myself, and I looked at the charts and I was like, well, that doesn't look like a prospective venue. Well, the thing that changes everything, and here's the thing about Pluto, is the transformation into orgasmic feeding birth structure, because Pluto is also about birthing. When we don't have that, we have a person that is trying to be a good man here, and then I don't know what they're supposed to do there, or what are they even doing there. Maybe they did a Venus ritual, and then boom, they fell on a certain energy that that energy was not even summoning anyone specific in general, or not even summoning in general. And then that comprises together a woman that is both internally, um, how should I say that, embodied, because we cannot say self-honoring without embodiment and sense of self. And and from that perspective, there can be ideas, values, creation, but the economic system, the taxation system, it has to support from the cradle to the grave orgasmic birthing as life changes. Otherwise, let's take an example of this man. This man will be in the theater tatter where the Missy would say, or the woman that was not going into the internal things but to the external things, um, would be, oh, are they going to be here? Are they going to not be here? And so on and so forth. And the person was not even summoning anything. It's like, okay, but but I'm looking like for a partner. I'm looking for a partner, not somebody with another commitment. And I still need the space to myself to align me with me. This is why I'm not dating people. And then everybody is upset with, if it is, let's say, a woman, and there's one man like this, one man like that. The same, it can be, oh, the man is trying to do, I saw a person that was dating a woman, had Chiron in the fourth. I also have Chiron in the fourth. He said she had mother issues. She was narcissistic. It took me 2 years to get over that. I didn't want to say it. I didn't want to tell him you're lucky. Because 2 years. And I honestly said, I have Chiron in the fourth. Probably your Missy was targeted as infant. There was no discussion about anything honoring of the sense of self, of the erotic, non-erotic self, attachment patterns. And when those conversations began to arise, Peter rings dropped one after one, and then people try to say, oh, it was a phase. Or they're trying to get attention. The basis for your Missy to not be narcissistic with mother issues was simply not there. I love my mom. As much as we can fight, we also support each other and understand each other. I had to be 2 years off contact with my own mom after the Me Too. Why? Because I was leaving a certain situation and there wouldn't be any chance that I would be dealing with my things and whether this, whether that, and so on, and the misunderstanding. And I had to have myself before I could be even in relations with the person that brought me to life. That is how off the rails the world is and the economy is. This is why this Mars square Pluto. Mars in Venus sign, for example, wants to know, are we going to initiate the next level of union? Okay, it's not Saturn. It's not, are we going to commit? But are we going to up level our union, or are we going to sever ties? And Pluto answer, well, do we have the infrastructure for orgasmic birthing? If not, it's going to be a bomb. So what union? And this is exactly what we saw with the Star of Hormuz yesterday. Now, even when it comes to the people that don't have the womb, to the energetic womb, aligning the fascia, and um, and we need more voices of people that have dealt with that they can say what works for them, because I don't want to. Yeah, I don't want, like, this is the place where the voices of the people that deal with that um, a good discussion. They were forced gender change. They were trying to go, and thanks to M. Spiracy, I understand there was a Egyptian goddess called Neith, and she was basically the creator goddess, and she had both the masculine and the feminine. So the superhuman project since the Phoenicians was trying to be, and this is what some people call hermaphrodite. It was trying to be like that Neith, but it was trying to achieve that by violence, by slavery, by rape. That's not whatever that need was. It's not that. And then we have people that were born and had, whether it's extra chromosome, whether it's genetic anomalies, and so on and so forth. To be aware of that is already a venue, because the Epstein dossiers were also part of generating an androgynous um, people now. But the issue is that the aligning of the feminine and masculine is not by being androgynous and violent. Okay, for example, Ramses had a harem, and the harem killed him. It's practices that honor the sovereign alignment, and a lot of people have to shed residues. People have been indoctrinated that they are of this bloodline or that bloodline, and again, there's nothing wrong with knowing our roots, with knowing where we date back to. At the same time, that gnosis is true to any bloodline. Okay, that's There are a lot of people, Anya Wick talked about it, a lot of people that had to talk about LGBTQ rights where they weren't LGBTQ and they went through forced gender change. And the internal tension would cause harm um, that would affect the attempt to have LGBTQ rights. LGBTQ rights is connected with pedophilia because in the extortion cults, they would generate children that would be basically raped pansexually. And this is where people that are authentically LGBTQ, they need to draw the line of discernment because ignoring that keeps people being murdered for their gender, whether it's cisgender woman or whether it's LGBTQ. And of course, it causes housing issues because they want these people to be doing Epstein and death row. The economy, the structure, the architecture is supposed to be supportive of orgasmic birthing structure. And there's a thing that each individual can do, which is practicing the fascia, practicing aligning the toes or yoga for the toes, and making sure that the meridians are in place. There's a lot of information, some free information, some applications. Don't give your data away to application. There's a lot of hype for medical applications, and people give their data away for medical applications. It's not safe. It's still governed by the Epstein dossiers. Caroline Harris has made a lot of information accessible for people to be able to curate themselves. And this is what they should be doing, because if we cannot safeguard, for example, if I told you, oh, have a consultation with me for astrology or aromatherapy, I cannot tell you that I can safeguard your information. Let's say I buy a program, put it to AstroGold or whatnot. I don't know. They cannot grant that they can protect their data. If I wanted to open an alternative to that, I wouldn't be able to do so. So the many facets of the AI applications, they need to align with orgasmic birthing supportive structures so that we can have global connection rather than global surveillance. And this is inspired by, I hope I'm going to see that video because I marked it to watch later. No, I owe you the link. I just marked it to watch later and it moved away from my feed. It's a video about from YouTube talking about global connection versus global surveillance. Now, again, with the boom of the internet, if I take it from back to 1996 and the boom of the internet with Neptune Aquarius, we began to have the internet and Neptune combination was radical acceptance as curation for personality issues or relational trauma issues. The grassroots movement of talking about narcissistic abuse disorder in the DSM, CPTSD in the DSM. That was all the results of Neptune basically going through Aquarius, and then the ingress into Pisces already brought it wave after wave to the DSM. While Pluto with the subprime in 2008 was decomposing, and more layers of society dealt with those problems, and then they understood things. More and more people understood more and more things. And this is why I said that to argue with the people that say that they are causing enlightenment is very difficult when people don't hone in on the abolishing rape factors. If people hone in on the abolishing rape factors and they can see how one is a residue. Because when people begin to apply that, they immediately see, does your schedule support orgasmic birthing? Do your relationships support orgasmic birthing? Is the bone structure within, which can be aligned, not by surgery? Again, I'm not outruling surgery, but before that, the life changes within. This is where the yoga toes or trauma-informed yoga come to mind. And I really urge a lot of the teachers to do courses that explain that people can self practice, because after the Epstein list, the growing gnosis, the fact that people don't trust, is a good factor. Somebody would tell me, Shirley, I don't trust to give you my my birth data, not because of you, but because of everything around. I say, good for you. That's a good thing. And it's probably you're already tending to certain transits, whether it's Pluto in Aquarius, whether it's Uranus in Gemini, or even Neptune in Aries, which is the sense of self and leaking of information about the self. And you say, okay, but what is the model? But everybody has to. No. There is a difference between picking the mellows or building adobe houses with the community. But the community also needs to change so that the sovereign will be sovereign within it, both the indigenous community. Watch videos about orgasmic birthing. Listen to the stories. I'm not an expert from that. I never had children. Okay? And no, seriously. I can observe patterns, but the more we have people that gave orgasmic birthing and then we can also be discerning, because transmuting pain to power, yes, it can have to do with Saturn Pluto aspects. But for that to be supported, we need to bring a lot of pleasure, because essentially it's standing in our power. It's not. And when we actually stand in our power, the word power ceases to, the need to use the word power dissolves. Okay, if I have happy, good, thriving relationship with someone, I don't need to use the word power relations. To build the structure, we need to think about that each of us will be able to say no without, and have the support, whether it's financial, material, emotional, spiritual, to basically exist, and not for the men to kill themselves or for the women to kill themselves or whatnot. And it's a realistic appraisal. Sometimes on a matter level, it might mean two houses, two separate accounts, but it also means taxation rules. It also means economy. It also means whatever occultistic practices around the. And Pluto also rules the occult, rules the economy. Mars squaring Pluto here is, to the degree that we are aligned with orgasmic birthing structures, orgasmic birthing supportive structures, that is not just transmitting pain to power, there's actual joy of living, the easiest the response would be. The more we're not, the more crisisy this aspect will be, and the more problems the response will bring. It's an opening cycle of Mars and Pluto. When people thought that the Me Too was a phase, and when a person was connected with their embodied sense of self and they tried to traffic them, they deepened their issues, they deepened their problems. Well, that other person went from, oh, what was that written? Oh, the Epstein occult. Okay, that's human trafficking. And that pertains to cloning farm and breeding farm. I was child free. I was just trying to grow my business, and some coach said, "Oh, it's like growing a baby," and I'm like, okay, I should tend at least to my fertility on an energy level. And releasing the emotions, and then the entire society wasn't prepared for that. Now those people that thought, oh, the Me Too was a phase, and were caught up in all their dredged up things, they have deepened their issues. Whereas the people that identified a trajectory, how many years before the Epstein dossiers, I was singing Drop the Peter Ring, I Am. And I Am is Aries. Saturn Neptune was dropping the Peter Ring. It was on the Ketu of Michel Nihul, Sancta Michel. If you don't know who is Michel Nihul, watch Anneke Lucas. Because she did not know the truth, but Michel Nihul she knew. And 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 Saturn Neptune is entirely on his Ketu. Now the venues that there are many venues. Okay, for the people within the list, it's about um, questing for reparations for the fact that they weren't born in orgasmic birthing. I cannot stress that enough. If you're a billionaire, and align with sense of self, honoring the feminine, honoring the inner child, these people are gonna need housing first, independent of ability to work, for decades. Now, the more people are aligned with that, the more the collective nervous system is aligned with that, the less decades it would take for people to actually recover. And what can be recovered here is beyond what we can imagine. Very simply put, the world's evil. It looks like utopia until it is in praxis. Okay? Now, the wonderful thing is that they around these times they already have the people saying, no, I'm not into those. Okay, I'm not much into Dante, I'm not much into Hitler. I want an actually orgasmic birthing supportive structure, and any offer has to support that and cannot drain from that. Wait, recording. Okay, so 29 midheaven, Taurus, Jupiter hour, Jupiter in the 11th house. The more aligned the action around supporting or structures that are supporting of orgasmic birthing, whether it's children, projects, or the next phase in life transitions, the more we're gonna see that going through this square is feels more like orgasmic birthing and less like a lot of escalations that will create further problems. So if I take it from the Me Too, the people that practice, let's say, connecting with their inner self, embodied sexuality, they got more and more and more things that align with that trajectory. Even when people try to get at them, they immediately saw, hey, this person, because there are even people that they, because of the programming that is so intense, it would change the worldview about women and men and so on and so forth. And when they ran into that friction and resistance, it created the dynamo that they had to. Yeah. Yeah. That people began to see that people are both not judging them and also questing for structures that are compatible for life. And this is also how, eventually, not every person got to the point of where, I don't know, the guillotine plays into the extortion cult logic and so. Not, yeah, but even people that got close enough, we began to compliment on each other. Whereas the people that said, the Me Too went too far, that's a phase, we can control that, we can maneuver that, they created a crescendo of fiascos that indeed we saw with the Epstein dossiers out. As the people that knew that the Me Too wasn't a phase were seeing the trajectory and like, wait a second, all these folks, they're gonna need housing first, independent of ability to work and so on and so forth. That was generated in a breeding farm and so on and so forth. It kind of like the people that were targeted by were the people that were coming up with the solution of alleviating corruption. Whereas the people that thought, the Me Too went too far, they were just getting deeper into troubles. And it's about the balance of rest and work. The more the people were targeted, the more Epstein Peter rings were exposed, because it plays to the hand of extortion cult. It is a media artifact. That person was silenced. That person was this. That person had reached. Then suddenly they become marginalized in the media and so on and so forth. And then juxtaposed to that, what the list comes out, the juxtaposition of that and that, it created. And then the more we people were allowed to speak and not be tortured, the more they could align with orgasmic birthing supportive structures, the more solution they could find that actually is the antidote to the Michel Nihul, to the Marc Dutroux. By the way, I looked at the chart of Michel Nihul. His Pluto would be opposing his ascendant at a very young age, and this is where he would probably be susceptible to some sort of personality cult from birth. Michel Nihul can, like Dutroux, like anybody on that list that will probably be out, litigate for the reparations for not having been born in orgasmic birthing supportive structures. That's a solution only a person who is tending to this issue, tending to the missing, and see, oh my God, it's a blue ocean, can come up with. Which tells us that to try to torture and silence the testimonies to begin with was against the best interest of the people that were born into these basically breeding farms, or kidnapped a childhood to these settings so that the upbringing would be similar, and never actually got the chance to be in structures that support life within and outside. And then they were getting, everybody was feeding them smugness about getting away with everything, so that it would build up several decades to a boom. Mars is sextiling Rahu and Ketu, and the good thing about this Mars square Pluto is that Mars is a point of talus between Rahu and Ketu. We are purging Magha, but we are also rejuvenating our view on religion and global maritime trade or maritime flow of any. And again, if it's you know if it's slaves being transported, of course Hormuz will be closed. נכון. hmm Just like um, they picked not Nikola Tesla's energy, but Nikola Tesla himself was enslaved and he was not supportive of good balance between work and rest, and therefore he was not contributing to abolishing slavery, which would get us to pick Nikola Tesla's energy over Graham Bell's invention. Um, of course, when the People's Pension funded that breeding project, it was breeding project to generate criminals against humanity, masqueraded by a shit ton of ideology, in order to make the criminals against humanity expendable. Abolish rape, and you've dismantled the ability of the extortion cult logic to basically claim that it causes enlightenment. Um, let's see what's up at the news. World news. And Mars in Taurus is boots on ground, so the request for NATO to go boots on ground in without abolishing rape is um, world news. Trump says Iran deal is largely negotiated, including reopening Strait of Hormuz. Again, this Mars has yet said its final word, which will be in the coming 2 days. Gaza aid, or lack of. Now, here is also the thing. A lot of the things that operated with Pluto being in Leo, that worked on the power of visibility, but eventually also on exposing what was not visible. A lot of these things don't work when Pluto is in Aquarius. So studying Pluto in Leo doesn't give us the trajectory for handling things with Pluto in Aquarius. For Pluto in Aquarius, knowing that abolishing the Inquisition is abolishing rape in scripture, in economy, in practice, and under any, whether marriage or not married, both by men and by women. Okay? That's attuned with the spirit of the time. Because when I take a look at the trajectory of Inquisitions, the converts were also massacred. And to abolish Inquisition is to abolish rape. Basically, the Inquisition said either we abolish trying to control the world and support orgasmic birthing and yin-yang supportive alignment structures, sovereignty, and so on and so forth, or the whole world goes weird. So I know what trajectory I'm picking. Everybody can pick their own trajectory. No, putting on a giant cross is not going to do the work. What can I say? And again, the people that were tortured. But this is also why I'm talking about that in the context of terror or crimes against humanity or Peter rings and so on and so forth. China deepens ties with UN agency as US prepares withdrawal. Again, what's relevant to the West is relevant to the East. WHO chief calls for urgent Ebola action and pandemic preparedness. We should keep in mind that Africa is not the same Africa, nuclear wise. Medical students are a vital conduit for science diplomacy. Gaza's humanitarian emergency drags on. Now, here's the thing: if we would abolish rape, let's just put it that way. Just try to imagine that instead of striking Gaza, Israel would abolish rape and ritual abuse within, and the Palestinian people seeking to escape and actually having the targeting towards them seized would be an asylum and later growing. The women will not want to have I don't know how many children without being able to support them, as we saw with the case with women that immigrated to Sweden. Deals with the demographic issue, not by depopulation, but by honoring the feminine. And then who would be the resistance from the Palestinian sector to women's rights? Because the Palestinians would have to preserve their women, so they would have to compete on women's rights. And then the Israeli-Palestinian Chamber of Commerce would actually not work on transactional relationships, which made it impossible to work there, even though the people were very nice. But that atmosphere life energy wise is not um, for trade. For here's the thing: there were a lot of tycoons that were talking about interdependency in trade as peace in the Middle East, not just Shimon Peres. Okay, doesn't work with transactional relationships mindset because of the issues of orgasmic birthing. Okay, it's a wealth trajectory. It's a life energy wealth trajectory. Iran. What if instead of striking Iran, United States and Israel would provide asylum free from any form of, they would have to clear up the Epstein dossiers, but we wouldn't have to strike Iran. And then whoever would be, and not only that, it would make, even if there would be a strike, and it would be against, I don't know, a demonstration of ayatollahs to say, oh, we go by Islam when they want to abolish, let's say, child weddings. They can be bombed. It's bombing people that would rape people, infants, and the raped infants would be susceptible to be war criminals. It's not a demonstration. It's not an opinion. Okay? Because why? Because it's aligned with the issue is the sense of self. Does this thing violate the sense of self? If so, it's not a part of democracy. Like I said, I'm going through my Uranus opposition. I have Uranus in Sag. Donald Trump has Uranus in Gemini. Certain people up the sec has Uranus Pluto in Virgo, and that squares in stereo. So and yeah. You see, the solution for our collective daddy issues is structure that support orgasmic birthing. And I just a baby. But yeah, but here is the point that being a baby there was not. Never mind. So anyway, um, Iran moving World Cup training base from U.S. to Mexico. World News in brief: Haiti crisis continues. Gaza West Bank updates. Mountain waste in Gaza. Drone attacks in Sudan. Now, usually they deal with waste by burning it. That in itself can be a chemical attack on Israel with the wind. Wind of change. Broadcasting from Israel. African, he is not peripheral. Yeah, and by the way, when Uranus is applying to the Uranus Pluto trine, gave us the shit revolutions, the trash revolutions. I think we saw it in France. People not, strike off the people that evacuate the garbage cans. Now, this one is, if they make it a city of trash, then they will just burn the trash and let the wind do its thing. It's what can the world learn from African higher education? And again, in order to, when we talk about ecosystemic recycling and ecosystemic supportive material, Again, it works with orgasmic birthing supportive structures. Okay, I'm ecosystemic. I'm becoming more ecosystemic. And sometimes it's not enough farts. um, Anybody know if Lada Sefa is okay? It's been 10 days since she posted, and you used to post often. Or light. So I'm gonna do Hori for that. Light, if you take a vacay, I'm not telling you to notify us because it's your life, but people are worried. There's kind of like spiritual warfare posting a video about the deads are rising and then gone for 10 days. And the internet is not interneting. So hope all is well. Um, what's more, Fulkin, support Annika Lucas' podcast. She's been marginalized. Support Peggy Van Roy by Rijmsdijk. No, I'm not getting dividends from that. My dividends is Peter Rings drops and structures that are supportive of orgasmic birthing being more able to come into fruition. Okay, Horary regarding Lida Sefa, Ascendant Ketu, Midheaven, Mercury applying to oppose Lilith, Mars hour, Mars square Pluto, Mars in the 9th house, Pluto in the 6th, Venus in the 11th, Moon in the 1st. Moon square Mercury, Moon in a T square with Mercury and Lilith. Probably something to do with Gnosis regarding that Lilith issue. That was unexpected, I guess. So, doesn't seem. As Mars hour is a bit concerning. Um, Jupiter. I'm asking regarding an occultist, 8th house, Neptune, Saturn, Chiron. Okay, seems to be there's some sort of a crisis. Light, if you need support, if you need financial support, if you want people to shout out, then let us know. Yeah, I can give a shout out in my channel. It's a small channel, but more things that I can say. That's about the news today. If people want to see what's in the locality of what do Israelis hear that the news is. Um, I'm using a platform called Ynet, which is a major newspaper in Israel that is kind of like not Haaretz, which is considered Haaretz is kind of like would align more with the world news. This is what actually this is what the people that don't align with the world opinion read in Israel, and this is probably also why. Um, and that's a perspective. So we've been told that a major person in Iran did not agree um, to give away the enriched uranium. And this is counter the reports of U.S. Counter to the reports on the U.S. Iran talks. And earlier, Rubia said we might hear better news. But from Iran, we hear that the enriched uranium, is meanwhile staying with Iran, and are not uh, agreeing to basically give this up. Iran is insisting that United States should release frozen assets because the situation in Hormuz will not return to what it was. In Irani news system Tasnim, they reported that a part of Iran's frozen assets, okay, basically removing the financial confiscation of assets. And this is different to financial sanctions per se, is confiscations of assets. It's kind of like the oligarchs' assets confiscated in the Ukraine-Russia war. Okay, some would say confiscated, some would say looting, some would say sanctions, and this is something that we need to pay attention to as a strategy. It's very connected to this Mars-Pluto. Because it gives us basically the preliminary was with the oligarchs in the Ukraine-Russia war, but this gives us some sort of a trajectory where declaring a war could be the global system, or basically one of the countries having or believing that they're having International Court of Justice support to basically take over the assets of the other country. Now, holistically, if they abolish rape within and outside, it is supported, but the assets need to go to the survivors, and they should not be killing innocent people, or should not be killing survivors in the process. It's very difficult to do that and not be considered a looter. So what they're playing into is already the logic of Dutch East India and British East India. And that logic failed because of, okay, the decolonization was basically simply because the colonizers weren't better than the natives in abolishing rape. Very simply put. Okay, it's happening. The feminine is the children, it's the women, it's the younger men, it's the men lower up the rank. And this is why I say the world is changing. It is an opportune time. I have no problem with Vogue looting the silver, the excess silver from the banks in Spain when the people could buy food. That's amazing. And alchemically, they brought silver, and also the people that were probably behind that knew that alchemy. This is why speaking that alchemy in the open makes people understand what was this trajectory, because they think of Vogue a lot. There are even Dutch people that think of Vogue and it's like, oh, this is a stain in our nation. I was like, the way the colonialization of Suriname and Indonesia, yeah, it is something that is problematic. The looting of the silver from the banks of Spain so that people could buy food, no, that's not a stain on the nation. And it was Vogue Nation. Later, United States was inspired even by the colors of the flag of Vogue and became United States. So the model for United States was basically Dutch East India, the financial model. Now, if they actually abolish rape, and they have to do that within and outside, and create structures supportive of orgasmic birthing for the population, then the transportation of good, the alchemical, it can flow with the ebb and flow, and then they're not seen as colonizers. They're not even seen as saviors or liberators. They're seen as a natural advance. For example, if I'm in a toxic relationship, or if I'm in a relationship with somebody who is a friend and both of us are not compatible for more, us growing together will naturally evolve to each of us finding our more. Okay? So that would be considered as the more than For example, the country that it would be most compatible for me to give orgasmic birthing, whether to a project or if the world is really